The courtroom did not breathe. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed as the billionaire's son leaned forward, smiling like the world owed him silence. Then he whispered a sentence so quiet the microphones barely caught it, yet cold enough to drain the room of light. For the first time in years, Judy froze, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried something no one expected, something that made him flinch. But before we begin, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe for more shocking courtroom stories. The whisper has already happened, but its echo refuses to die. It hangs in the courtroom like a cold fog, thin, chilling, impossible to ignore. Even the fluorescent lights seem to dim under its weight. The billionaire's son leans back in his seat as if he has just delivered a private victory. His smile is small, practiced, and self-assured. A smile belonging to someone who has never heard no spoken without consequence. Judge Judy watches him with a stillness that unsettles the gallery more than any raised voice could. Her gaze is sharp, probing, like she is inspecting not just the man but the lineage that shaped him. The plaintiff sits just a few feet away, shoulders drawn inward, as if the whisper reached her bones the same way it reached the judge's eyes. Her hands tremble around the stack of papers she brought, papers that suddenly feel too thin to protect her. She stares at the defendant as though reliving every moment that led her to this room. The air is tight, stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Judy slowly adjusts her glasses. The microphone crackles faintly, as if anticipating what she will say. The defendant's smile widens. He mistakes her silence for fear. He mistakes her pause for hesitation. He mistakes everything. She looks at him the way surgeons look at scans before deciding where to cut. "Sir," she says, her voice calm but carrying iron beneath it, "the court requires clarity. You will repeat exactly what you whispered." A ripple moves through the audience, part disbelief, part hunger for truth. The bailiff shifts his stance, subtly stepping closer to the bench. The cameras tilt forward, their lenses like unblinking eyes waiting to capture a moment that already feels historic. The defendant taps a finger on the table, slow and deliberate. "Your Honor," he replies, voice smooth as polished marble. "I did not say anything inappropriate. Perhaps the microphone caught a distortion." But his eyes betray him. They flicker, not with fear, but with enjoyment, the pleasure of control, the thrill of thinking he has the upper hand over someone the world considers untouchable. Judy leans forward, folding her hands. "Then repeating it should not trouble you." The plaintiff looks down, swallowing hard. The defendant's attorney shifts uncomfortably, sensing a storm forming behind the bench. The audience breaks into a low murmur until Judy lifts a hand. Silence returns instantly. The billionaire's son tilts his head. "I do not recall the exact phrasing." A lie. Everyone hears the lie. Judy studies him, not blinking, not moving, not giving him the satisfaction of visible reaction. Her silence hardens, turning into something that even he cannot smirk his way through. Then she reaches for the case file, thin, worn, waiting like a quiet witness on the desk. She flips it open with deliberate care, scanning the first page, then the second, then pausing on the third. Her expression shifts, almost imperceptibly, but enough for the defendant to straighten in his seat. Judy looks up, eyes colder than the whisper itself. "Let us begin," she says, "and we will start with what you tried so hard to hide." His smile returns the moment she asks him to repeat the whisper, slow, deliberate, the kind of smile that hides a bruise behind its teeth. The camera tightens on his face. He thinks he has already won. He leans back in his chair, shoulders loose, confidence radiating the way heat rises off concrete. Judge Judy, however, does not move. She sits in complete stillness, the type of stillness that exposes arrogance simply by enduring it. The courtroom waits, caught between curiosity and the uncomfortable feeling of watching someone taunt a storm. "Your Honor," the billionaire's son begins, tone dripping with politeness that feels more like poison. "I am afraid you misheard. I did not say anything worth repeating." The plaintiff stiffens. Her fingers squeeze the papers in her lap, as if grounding herself against a memory she never wanted resurfaced. A quiet tremor passes through her shoulders. It does not escape Judy's eyes. The defendant glances at her, and something in his smirk sharpens, like he is savoring the effect he still has on her. The gallery reacts with subtle shifts. A woman in the second row frowns. A man beside her pulls back slightly, as if sensing the temperature of the room dropping. Judy's voice slices through the tension. "This court," she says, "does not mishear. Try again." The defendant's jaw ticks, barely visible. A small betrayal of control. But he recovers quickly, adjusting his tie in a gesture meant to project nonchalance. "The microphones are sensitive," he says. "I may have said something under my breath, but certainly not anything relevant." Relevant. The word lands with arrogance heavy enough to bruise the silence. The bailiff takes a single step forward, not threatening, just present. The defendant notices. His eyes flicker between the bench and the bailiff, calculating. The plaintiff finally speaks, her voice fragile as glass. "He said something. I heard him." Her words tremble, but the courage behind them stands taller than she does. The defendant laughs under his breath. She must be emotional. It is a dismissal meant to sting, and it does. The plaintiff lowers her eyes, but Judy does not let the moment fade. "Do not speak to her," Judy snaps, voice controlled but edged with moral fire. "You answer to me." The defendant's smirk falters. Then Judy opens the case file. A soft rustle of paper slices through the quiet like a warning. She flips past the first few pages as if she already knows where she is going. Her eyes land on something near the back of the file, something she was not expecting. Her posture shifts. Barely, but enough. The defendant leans forward, suddenly alert. "What?" he asks, too quickly. "What is that?" Judy looks up slowly, gaze heavy with the kind of disappointment that precedes revelation. "Something," she says, closing the file halfway. "You should have disclosed before stepping into this courtroom." The courtroom feels the shift before anyone understands it. A single page, half raised in Judge Judy's hand, changes the energy of the room. Even the defendant stops smiling. Judy keeps her eyes on the document longer than expected, long enough for the gallery to sense that something inside that file does not match the confidence sitting at the defendant's table. The plaintiff watches her closely, searching Judy's expression for meaning, hope, anything. Her breathing steadies, as if she can feel the direction of the case turning, even if subtly. The billionaire's son leans forward, elbows on the table. The arrogance that coated every word he spoke begins to thin, replaced by something tighter, curiosity tinged with a shadow of fear. His fingers tap once, twice, against the polished wood, the rhythm uneven now. Judy lowers the file slightly, her gaze landing on him with surgical precision. "Sir," she says, "your documentation is inconsistent." He raises a brow. "Inconsistent how?" She does not answer immediately. Instead, she flips another page, her expression sharpening like a lens bringing a blurred image into focus. The courtroom shifts with her, rows of faces leaning in without meaning to. The cameras swivel slowly, capturing the change in atmosphere, the slow-motion collapse of a man who still thinks he is standing tall. The plaintiff wets her lips, gathering courage. "Your Honor, I filed every statement truthfully. Everyone." Judy nods barely. "I can see that." The defendant scoffs softly, tone brittle. "I am sure there is a mundane explanation. My assistant handles all my paperwork. Perhaps she—" "Enough." Judy's voice cuts him cleanly in half. "No one else's name is on this file. Only yours." A hush spreads as she lifts 2 pages, side by side. 2 signatures, 2 statements, 2 timelines that do not match. The lighting above the bench flickers, humming with the tension swelling beneath it. The defendant's smirk resurfaces, but it is weaker now, forced, mismatched to the fear hiding behind his eyes. "That is obviously a clerical error," he says. "Or," Judy replies, "it is something else entirely." The plaintiff grips her papers so tightly the edges bend. She watches the defendant's facade stretch thin, the cracks multiplying with every second Judy keeps those documents in her hands. Judy closes the file slowly, deliberately, the sound of the cover hitting the papers a quiet form of judgment. She studies him for a long moment before speaking. These statements contradict each other. They cannot both be true. She leans back, eyes narrowing. And one of them was submitted under oath. A murmur ripples across the gallery. The defendant shifts in his seat, adjusting his tie with a quick, nervous tug. It is the first unpolished movement he has made all morning. Judy's voice grows softer, more dangerous. "So before we move forward, you will explain why your sworn testimony does not align with itself." The defendant opens his mouth to respond, but instead of words, a smirk crawls back onto his face, a smirk that tells Judy everything she needs to know. The smirk should have been small enough to ignore, but in the tense quiet of the courtroom, it spreads like spilled ink. Judge Judy notices instantly, because arrogance always announces itself. For a moment, Judy says nothing. She simply watches him, observing the way his lips curl, how confidence radiates off him like heat from asphalt. The billionaire's son believes the contradiction in his sworn statements is an inconvenience, not a threat. He believes she will be the one to blink. He believes he is still in control. He could not be more wrong. Judy folds her hands, the motion graceful but edged with steel. "Sir, I will repeat myself once. These documents do not match. You will explain why." His eyes narrow with performative confusion. "Your Honor, paperwork passes through many hands. It is not uncommon for small errors. You signed both." Her interruption lands like a gavel's first strike. The plaintiff watches him with a fragile mixture of fear and vindication. Her hands tremble, but her eyes, those are steady now, steady in a way they were not before. She knows the shift happening in the room. Everyone does. The defendant exhales sharply, flashing a tighter smirk. "I understand this process may feel overwhelming to you, Your Honor, but I assure you." A collective gasp rises from the gallery. Even the air recoils. Judy leans forward. The lighting above the bench casts a sharp line across her face, separating patience from the last thread of tolerance. "Overwhelming?" she repeats, voice quiet enough to chill the room. The defendant shrugs, as though he is speaking to an employee beneath him. "No disrespect intended. I'm simply saying, mistakes get made when people rush." The plaintiff closes her eyes. The arrogance is familiar. Too familiar. She has lived under it. Judy does not raise her voice. She never needs to. "I do not rush, and I do not make mistakes in assessing dishonesty." A hush falls again, heavy, expectant, electric. The defendant shifts, pulling himself taller in his chair. "If you want the truth, I think you're reading too much into a simple mix-up. My father deals with these things all the time. He can clear it up." There it is, the entitlement behind the smile, the threat wrapped in privilege. Judy's expression does not change, but something in the room does, something subtle, like a string pulled taut under the floorboards. "You are not your father," she says, "and he is not in this courtroom. I am." His jaw clenches. The smirk twitches. Judy lifts the file again, flipping purposefully to the last page, the one that made her pause earlier. She studies it a second time, slower now, ensuring everyone sees her focus tighten. The defendant's eyes track her movements with a flicker of uncertainty, a crack slipping through his mask. The gallery senses it too. The first fracture. Judy looks up and says, "Curious. This document was not included in your original submission." She taps the page. "And it changes everything." The two documents lie on the bench like a pair of open wounds, same signature, different truths. The courtroom tilts toward silence. And the billionaire's son finally loses his smirk. Judge Judy places both statements side by side, aligning them with slow, deliberate precision. The papers rustle softly, the sound somehow louder than the whispers the defendant used earlier to intimidate. Rows of spectators lean forward, the atmosphere thick with anticipation and disbelief. "Let us begin," Judy says. "Explain why your sworn testimony contradicts itself." The defendant inhales sharply, sitting straighter, as though posture alone could rebuild his collapsing authority. "Your Honor, I have already said, this is likely an error by the assistant who prepared. You signed it." Her response slices through the air. His mouth opens, shuts, then shifts into a tight, uncomfortable smile, the kind that belongs to someone cornered but unwilling to admit it. His eyes scan the documents, darting between them as though searching for an escape route written in the margins. The plaintiff watches with a quiet intensity. Her hands steady now, her breathing controlled. She is no longer shrinking beneath his presence. She is observing him, studying the cracks that arrogance can no longer hide. Judy taps one signature, then the other. These are not clerical differences. These are different accounts of the same event, different timelines, different explanations, both submitted by you. He swallows. Hard. The lighting overhead hums, flickering slightly, the courtroom itself reacting to the unraveling of confidence happening at the defendant's table. He tugs at his collar, the first sign that the tailored suit no longer feels like armor. "Your Honor," he begins again, voice thinner now, "I sign dozens of documents a week. I cannot be expected to—" "That is precisely the point," Judy interrupts. "You do not read what you sign, or worse, you read them and do not care what is true." A ripple spreads through the gallery. Someone whispers, "He's done." Someone else murmurs, "He thinks he's above the law." The bailiff lifts a hand to quiet the room, but even he cannot silence the tension breathing through the space. The defendant shifts forward abruptly, losing the polished calm he entered with. "Are you accusing me of lying under oath?" Judy does not blink. "I am giving you an opportunity to explain it." He tries to laugh, but the sound falls flat, thin, nervous, broken around the edges. "Well, perhaps the plaintiff manipulated—" The plaintiff straightens. For the first time, she meets his gaze without fear. "I did not manipulate anything. You just never expected your words to matter." The defendant flinches. Judy nods, just once. She is correct. And considering your attitude today, I am beginning to suspect this discrepancy is not accidental. He freezes, the first true stillness he has shown. Then Judy closes the file gently, her eyes never leaving him. "Before I move forward," she says, voice low and deliberate, "I want you to think very carefully, because the next document I reveal will determine whether this was incompetence." She lifts a hand, touching the file's back page. "Or deliberate deception." The defendant exhales sharply, and something in him snaps, not quietly, not subtly, but with the reckless abandon of someone who believes consequences are a myth. When he speaks again, his words strike the courtroom like a live wire. "You are targeting me, Your Honor." The gallery gasps, an instant, collective shockwave. Even the bailiff pauses mid-step, his body angled toward the bench as if preparing for impact. Judge Judy does not react immediately. She simply looks at the young man, her expression carved from stone, her patience thinning like a thread pulled taut. "Targeting you?" she repeats, voice calm enough to frighten him. "Explain." The billionaire's son leans forward, dropping the last of his polished demeanor. His eyes burn with the entitlement of someone who has never been held accountable, not once. "You have made up your mind about me. You keep twisting my words, looking for problems that do not exist. You are biased." The courtroom temperature plummets. The plaintiff stiffens, drawing a breath that sounds more like survival than oxygen. She clutches the edge of the table, watching him confront the one person arrogance should never provoke. Her voice trembles, but she forces the words out anyway. She is not biased, she is listening. He scoffs. "You would say that." The sound cuts her deeper than the words. She recoils slightly, not out of fear this time, but from the sting of old familiarity. The dismissal, the invalidation, the way he erases people with a sentence. Judy holds up a hand, silencing both sides. "Sir," she says, "this is a courtroom. You do not accuse the bench of bias because you do not like the direction truth is heading." He laughs, too loud, too forced. His composure fractures visibly now. "Truth. This is entertainment for you. You want a villain, and you picked me." Judy's eyes sharpen, narrowing like a lens pulling tight. "You provided contradictory sworn statements. You whispered an inappropriate comment in my courtroom. You have shown disrespect to the plaintiff. I did not create your behavior. You did." The gallery murmurs, heat rising, tension swirling like smoke around the room. His hands ball into fists. "My father will not stand for this." And there it is again. The shield he believes will protect him, even here, even now. Judy exhales slowly, her disappointment palpable. "Your father's influence does not extend to this bench. You are responsible for your own actions." The plaintiff raises her chin, finding strength in the judge's calm authority. "Your Honor," she whispers, "he said similar things to me, when no one was around." The defendant snaps toward her. "Liar!" The bailiff steps forward instantly, grounding the moment with quiet authority. Judy looks toward the bailiff, then back at the defendant. "I am done with this performance. We will review something more substantial." She gestures toward the clerk. "Bring me the sealed envelope." The defendant's face drains of color. The shift is instant, visible, undeniable. His confident facade fractures, revealing something raw underneath. A flicker of fear he cannot hide fast enough. Judy takes the envelope in her hands, its weight heavier than anything he has faced yet. "Let us see," she says quietly, "what the truth looks like when it does not rely on your memory." The bailiff places the sealed envelope in Judge Judy's hand, like it contains a heartbeat. The defendant watches it the way prey watches a shadow overhead. His smirk is gone now, replaced by something quieter, sharper, fear. Judy turns the envelope over once, her fingers moving with deliberate calm. The soft tearing sound as she opens it slices through the silence. Not a single person in the gallery moves. Even the camera operators seem to hold still, as if afraid the slightest motion might break whatever truth is about to unfold. The defendant shifts in his seat. His knee bounces once before he catches himself. "Your Honor," he says carefully, "I am unfamiliar with whatever that is. My counsel has not." "I did not ask for your commentary," Judy replies, pulling out the documents inside. Her tone is measured, controlled, devastating in its precision. The plaintiff inches forward, clutching the edge of the table. Her breath trembles in her throat. She recognizes the fear radiating from the defendant because she once lived beneath that same shadow, when his power felt like a wall she could not climb. Judy spreads the contents across the bench. A list, then another, then a third. 3 separate complaints, 3 separate women, 3 separate warnings previously dismissed by administrative oversight. The defendant sees them, and his complexion changes by degrees, first pale, then blotched with color, then an unsettling shade of gray. "Those are baseless," he sputters. "Anyone can file—" "And yet," Judy interrupts, 3 separate complaints share the same language, the same pattern, the same behavior. The plaintiff looks down, grief and relief tangling together. She is not alone. She was never alone. The knowledge steadies her, grounding her like an anchor she never had before. The gallery murmurs, a ripple of shock breaking across the room. A woman in the back covers her mouth. A man beside her folds his arms, jaw clenched. The bailiff steps slightly closer to the defendant, not in threat, but readiness. The defendant's voice rises in pitch, stripped of its velvet arrogance. "This is a smear campaign. My father has competitors." "Your father," Judy says sharply, "is irrelevant. Your behavior is not." Her gaze pins him to the chair as though he is a butterfly beneath glass. "These complaints describe intimidation, manipulation, retaliatory threats, and coercion. They describe you." He shakes his head, a desperate movement. You do not understand. I understand perfectly. Judy lifts one sheet, reading aloud a line that makes the plaintiff flinch. He whispers threats because he believes whispering makes them harder to prove. The defendant closes his eyes, just for a second, but the courtroom sees it. The entire room sees the crack widening, the mask peeling, the truth clawing its way upward. Judy sets the papers down, her voice softer now, dangerous in its softness. These documents were not submitted by you, but they should have been. The defendant swallows hard, and the sound seems to echo. Now, Judy continues, looking directly at him, would you like to explain the pattern, or should I? The question lands like a blow. The plaintiff straightens. The gallery leans in. Time itself seems to hesitate. The defendant opens his mouth, struggling for the lie he cannot find. And Judy's fingers reach toward another item inside the envelope. A small device. A recorder. The recorder sits on Judge Judy's bench like a small black threat. The defendant's eyes lock onto it, wide, alert, terrified. Then, with a sudden inhale, he snaps back into performance mode. He straightens his suit jacket, clears his throat, and lifts his chin as if assembling the pieces of a shattered persona. The shift is instant, almost mechanical, like someone slipping into a mask they have worn too often. He forces a smile, thin, strained, desperate. Your Honor, he begins, voice sliding into the practiced charm of someone raised on entitlement. I think we have gotten carried away. Anyone can submit a complaint. Anyone can make allegations. This is all noise. Judy does not speak. She lets him talk, watching the unraveling happen in real time. He leans forward, voice gaining pace. People in my position are targeted all the time. My father is a public figure. My name opens doors, and unfortunately, it also attracts bizarre accusations. The gallery shifts uncomfortably. His tone no longer exudes confidence. It reeks of deflection, of panic wearing expensive cologne. The plaintiff watches him through a new lens. Not fear, not exhaustion, clarity. She whispers, "This is what he always does." Her voice trembles, not with weakness, but with recognition. The defendant hears her and slams a palm against the table. Do not speak while I am. Enough! Judy's voice cuts clean through his outburst, sharper than any gavel strike. He freezes, stunned that she dared interrupt him, stunned that she can. Judy lifts the small recorder between two fingers. You say these complaints are noise. Let us see then whether this device also produces noise. His reaction is immediate and uncontrolled. That recording is illegal. His hands shake. His breath shortens. His composure fractures like glass under a hammer. It is evidence, Judy replies coldly. And it was submitted voluntarily by a former associate of your father. You may want to consider why she felt the need to protect herself. The plaintiff's eyes widen. She knows what is coming. She lived it. The defendant's voice cracks around the edges. You cannot just... You have no idea what is actually on that. Then you will have no objection to the court hearing it, Judy says, placing the recorder on the bench with deliberate calm. The room stills, cameras zoom in, the gallery holds its breath. Even the hum of the ceiling lights seems to fade. The defendant tries one last tactic. He straightens his shoulders, lowers his voice, and speaks with an eerie calm meant to reclaim power. This is beneath you, Your Honor. You should not listen to edited fabrications. People are trying to manipulate you. But Judy has already seen the truth, the panic behind his eyes, the tremor in his voice, the sweat forming at his collar. She is not listening to his words anymore. She is reading everything else. She reaches toward the recorder. The defendant lurches forward, just slightly, like he might try to stop her. But the bailiff steps in, a silent wall of authority. Judy presses a button. A soft click echoes through the chamber. His voice spills out, quiet, cold, unmistakable. If you ever cross me again, I will make sure you regret it, and I do not need to raise my voice to ruin you. Then another voice, the same whisper he delivered today. directed at someone inside this courtroom. The recording plays for only 3 seconds, 3 seconds of a whisper meant to stay buried, and yet those 3 seconds are enough to change the shape of the air. The defendant stops breathing before the room does. His voice, cold, calculated, almost gentle, slides through the speakers like a blade wrapped in silk. The courtroom goes still, not out of politeness but shock. Even the fluorescent lights seem to hesitate, humming softer, as if unwilling to interrupt the truth. The defendant sits frozen. The confident facade he wore like armor melts down his face, revealing something smaller and more brittle than anyone expected. His eyes dart between the recorder and Judge Judy, desperate for a way to rewind the last 30 seconds of his life. The first threat on the recording is directed at the plaintiff, and she reacts instantly. Her hands fly to her mouth, eyes filling with a mix of fear and vindication. She knew he said it. She lived under those whispered warnings. But hearing it played aloud, hearing it in a room where she is finally believed, breaks something open inside her that she has been holding shut for far too long. Then comes the second whisper. Lower. Darker. Directed at someone else. The gallery stiffens. A wave of realization sweeps the room like cold wind. People glance at one another, not knowing who the whisper belonged to, not knowing who he targeted, only knowing one thing for certain. It was not the plaintiff. Judge Judy leans back slightly, her face unreadable. Her silence carries a weight that makes the defendant shrink half an inch without realizing it. She lets the audio finish, lets the final hiss of the whisper fade like smoke rising from a wick-colored flame. "Sir," she says slowly, "you will identify the person you addressed in your second threat." The defendant swallows. His throat clicks. I do not recall." "Try again." He grips the table, knuckles whitening. It is taken out of context." "There is no context," Judy replies, "in which threatening someone in my courtroom becomes acceptable." The plaintiff wipes a tear that falls not from pain, but from the echoes of relief. She watches him unravel in real time, the way people watch storms break trees. They have seen strength, yes, but they have also seen the roots underneath. A soft gasp rises from the gallery. A woman in the second row covers her mouth, her eyes wide with recognition. The whisper. She knows it. And the defendant sees her reaction. Panic flickers across his face, a second crack in the mask, then a third. Judy notices everything. "Who?" she repeats. "Were you threatening?" He opens his mouth, but no words come. His arrogance has abandoned him. His lies have run dry. All that remains is the truth clawing its way up his throat and refusing to be swallowed. Before he can speak, the woman in the gallery stands, trembling. "I know that voice," she says softly. "And he was speaking to me. Do you think remorse should ever erase guilt? Or must accountability stand even when fear finally breaks through arrogance?" The woman who stood speaks barely above a whisper, yet her words slam through the room with the force of a verdict. The defendant's eyes widen, too fast, too raw, and the mask he built out of arrogance begins to slip. For the first time since the hearing began, he looks genuinely afraid. The woman's hands tremble as she lowers them from her mouth. Her voice cracks in the quiet. "He said those exact words to me 2 years ago, when I refused to alter documents for his father. He threatened me the same way, like a secret he thought I would never dare repeat." A ripple spreads through the courtroom, shock, empathy, outrage, all colliding in one silent wave. The plaintiff gasps softly, her eyes darting between the woman and the defendant as puzzle pieces fall into place. She is not alone. None of them were. Judge Judy watches his reaction with a surgeon's precision. The defendant's breathing grows uneven, his jaw flexes involuntarily. The flicker of control he clung to is extinguished by the weight of recognition. Someone he never expected to re-encounter has walked through the doors of his protected world. "Sir," Judy says, her voice low enough to pierce, "is this the person you threatened in that recording?" He shakes his head. Too quickly. Too violently. "No, I do not. I never threatened her." That recording is manipulated. She is lying. But his voice falters. His hands shake. A bead of sweat slips down his temple. The woman does not back down. She steps forward slightly, her voice steadier now. You looked right at me. You told me I did not need proof to be destroyed. You whispered it the same way you whispered to her. She gestures softly toward the plaintiff. Always quiet, always confident no one would believe us. The defendant slams his palm on the table again, this time not out of dominance, but panic. I never said that. I never... Enough. Judge Judy's voice cuts through his denial, slicing it clean. Your reaction tells me more than your words. His mask tears another inch, the edges fray. The calm certainty he once radiated dissolves like ink in water. He tries to gather himself, to speak with the same measured authority he wielded earlier, but nothing lands. Every sentence collapses halfway out of his mouth. The plaintiff sits straighter, watching the truth surface through cracks she prayed would form. Her heartbeat slows, her breath steadies. Vindication, heavy, bittersweet, trembling, settles into her bones. Judy leans forward, her gaze relentless. You claim this woman is lying, and yet the whisper in the recording matches her account, word for word. Do you have an explanation? He opens his mouth, but only a single broken sound escapes. Nothing coherent, nothing convincing, just noise from a man whose power has finally met its limit. The gallery murmurs, and the defendant looks around, eyes darting like he is searching for someone, anyone, to rescue him. But his father is not here. His money is not here. His influence is not here. Only truth remains. Judy exhales, slow and deliberate. We will hear her full statement. The defendant flinches. His mask does not just crack this time, it shatters. Judy turns to the woman. Step forward, she says. The woman hesitates, then nods, and the courtroom braces for what she is about to reveal. She steps into the aisle slowly, as if the ground beneath her has changed shape. Her breath trembles, but her resolve does not. And the defendant, once a pillar of arrogance, shrinks at the sight of her. The woman walks toward the front of the courtroom, each step echoing louder than it should. The gallery parts in silence, watching a moment that feels less like testimony and more like history stitching itself back together. She clasps her hands in front of her, placing them over a nervous flutter at her waist. Judge Judy studies her with a softness not often seen, respect, recognition, an unspoken promise of safety. State your name for the record. Her voice wavers. Elena Morales. The defendant flinches at the name, as if hearing a ghost speak. Ms. Morales, Judy says gently, you may proceed. Elena turns, not to Judy, but to the defendant. Her eyes fill with the weight of everything he stole from her, sleep, confidence, trust in herself. You threatened me, she says quietly. I did not imagine it. I did not exaggerate. You did it to me, the same way you did it to her. The plaintiff presses a hand over her heart. The defendant's eyes dart around the room. This is ridiculous. Silence, Judy commands. Elena swallows hard and continues. I worked for your father. I respected him. And at first, I respected you too. Until you came to my desk one evening and asked me to adjust a financial report. The defendant's jaw tightens. His foot taps restlessly under the table. I refused, Elena says, and you leaned in close, so close I could feel your breath on my cheek, and you whispered, you don't need proof to be destroyed. The gallery gasps. The plaintiff covers her mouth. The bailiff subtly shifts, eyes locked on the defendant. Elena's voice cracks. It was the quiet that scared me most. You said it like you were telling me the weather, like ruining someone was normal. The defendant slams his hand on the table. She's lying. Judy raises a single finger. He falls silent instantly. Elena, Judy asks, did you file an internal complaint? I did. It disappeared. Judy nods, absorbing every detail. And the recording? Elena hesitates, then reaches into her purse with trembling hands. She holds up a small flash drive. "I kept a copy," she says, "just in case." The defendant's face drains of color. He whispers, "No. No, she wouldn't." But she would. And she did. Judy looks at the bailiff. "Please retrieve that for the record." He steps forward, takes the flash drive, and places it in Judy's hand. The courtroom vibrates with anticipation, dread, justice, all colliding in the same breath. Elena's chin quivers. "I didn't come here to hurt anyone. I came because someone else finally said no to him, and I didn't want her to stand alone." The plaintiff's eyes fill with tears, gratitude, grief, release. The defendant, now visibly shaking, whispers under his breath, "This is a setup. This is all a setup." But no one believes him. Not anymore. Not with the truth trembling in Judge Judy's hand. Judy inserts the flash drive into the courtroom monitor. A soft chime echoes, and his voice, his unfiltered, unmasked voice, begins to play, confessing far more than anyone expected. The audio begins with a soft hiss, then his voice pours into the courtroom like poison finally given air. Not whispered this time, not hidden, confident, casual, practiced. The defendant's shoulders tighten as the recording continues. His voice speaks of people as obstacles, rules as inconveniences, and consequences as things meant only for those without powerful fathers. Each sentence reveals a man shaped more by lineage than conscience. Judge Judy watches him, not the screen. She studies every twitch, every swallow, every flicker of recognition in his face. This is not just evidence, it is a map leading straight to the root of who he has become. On the recording, he laughs lightly. "If Dad wants something handled, I handle it. People don't need to know what I sign. They just need to obey." Gasps ripple through the gallery. The plaintiff grips her sleeve, a tremor running through her. Elena's eyes shine with both vindication and grief, the grief of hearing the echoes of a workplace that once swallowed her whole. Judy pauses the recording. The silence afterward is suffocating. "Sir," she says, voice steady but heavy, "you speak here of forging documents, of threatening those who refuse, of using your father's reputation as a shield." He shakes his head violently. It was taken out of context." "Context?" Judy tilts her head. "Your tone was not of fear or remorse. It was of familiarity, comfort. You sounded like someone following a family blueprint." His lips tremble. For the first time, he looks young, not powerful, not untouchable. Just a frightened son carrying a legacy he was never emotionally equipped to bear. The plaintiff watches him with a strange mixture of empathy and disbelief. She murmurs softly, "He learned this somewhere." Elena closes her eyes. His father ruled that place with an iron silence. Judy leans forward. "Did your father instruct you to intimidate Ms. Morales, or the plaintiff? Did he ask you to falsify anything for him?" A flicker of something, shame, fear, defiance, crosses the defendant's eyes. "I did what I thought would make him proud," he finally whispers. The courtroom stills. Because under the arrogance, under the entitlement, under the cruelty, there is a child who never understood the difference between respect and fear. But excuses do not erase harm. Judy's expression softens only for a heartbeat before hardening again. "Your father may have shaped you, but he is not sitting in that chair today. You are." He hunches forward slightly, shrinking beneath the truth. His hands tremble at the edges of the table. His voice breaks as he attempts to defend himself. He told me the world listens only when you control it. And so you tried to control it through threats," Judy replies, "through silence, through fear." His eyes glisten, not with remorse yet, but with the collapse of a belief system, a dynasty cracking from the inside. The plaintiff wipes away a tear, one not of fear, but of release. Elena exhales, her spine straightening. Justice, once buried under offices and whispers, is finally climbing toward daylight. Judy lowers her gaze to the papers again. "We are not finished," she says. There is still the matter of the financial discrepancies, and your role in them. The echo of his father's influence still lingers in the room, heavy, suffocating, shaping the silence around him. But now a different force begins to rise. Accountability. Judge Judy lifts the financial documents, each page crackling with the brittle truth that built his confidence, and now fuels his undoing. The defendant rubs his thumb along the edge of the table, the motion small but frantic, a silent tell of a man who finally realizes he is out of road. Sir, Judy begins, what I am holding here details 2 sets of figures, one submitted to this court and another privately archived. Her voice is steady, controlled, almost gentle in its precision. Both bear your signature. The defendant's throat tightens. I didn't know those existed. Someone must have... Your assistant? Judy interrupts. He freezes. The gallery murmurs, the tension thick enough to press hands against foreheads and tighten the back of throats. The plaintiff folds her arms across her chest, not defensively, but with a new kind of strength. For the first time since she entered this courtroom, she is not bracing herself against him. She is watching him face the one thing he cannot manipulate: consequence. Elena watches too, breathing slowly, reclaiming air she lost years ago. Judy places the conflicting documents side by side on the bench. These discrepancies indicate deliberate inflation of revenue. Someone doctored these reports. He shakes his head, shoulders trembling. I was told to sign them. I thought... Thought what? Judy presses. That your signature carried no responsibility? That you were immune because of your father's name? The defendant's lips part, but the explanation dies before it reaches sound. His eyes glass over, panic redecorating his expression. I didn't want to disappoint him, he whispers. A truth he never meant to admit. A truth that lands heavier than his arrogance ever did. The gallery stills. Because for the first time, he is not performing. He is unraveling. The plaintiff's gaze softens, not with forgiveness, but with understanding of the wound beneath his cruelty. Fear doesn't excuse what you did, she says softly. But I know what it's like to live beneath someone else's shadow. He looks at her not with contempt, but with a fractured recognition he cannot articulate. Elena steps closer, voice steady. You hurt people to hide your own fear. The defendant's eyes close briefly, only briefly, like someone meeting a memory they've run from for years. Judy lets the silence breathe, not to comfort him, but to let the truth settle into the cracks of his crumbling defenses. When she finally speaks, her voice carries the weight of 1,000 verdicts. Fear may explain your actions, but it does not absolve them. His shoulders collapse inward, quiet, defeated, human in a way he has never allowed himself to be. The gallery watches him fall apart, piece by piece, realizing that reckoning doesn't always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it comes with the sound of someone finally telling the truth, and hearing it out loud for the first time. Judy lifts her gavel slightly. There is one final matter to address, she says, and it concerns the harm you inflicted on the plaintiff. Judge Judy's words settle over the room like dust after an explosion. One final matter, one final truth waiting to be spoken aloud. The plaintiff straightens in her seat. Her breath is shallow, drawn up from a place she has kept buried long before this courtroom existed, long before the defendant's whisper poisoned her nights. She presses her palms against her knees, grounding herself in the moment she has both dreaded and needed. Miss Carter, Judy says, voice softened to an impossible gentleness. I want you to tell this court what you need to feel safe again. The defendant's head snaps toward her, fear tightening his jaw, widening his eyes. He knows money won't save him here. Money is what he's always thrown at problems, at people, at truth. But safety? Safety is something he cannot purchase. Safety is something only honesty can build back. The plaintiff looks at Judy, then at Elena, then, slowly, at him. When I first filed this case, she begins, her voice thin but steady. I thought I wanted compensation. I thought money could make me feel like I mattered again. The gallery leans forward. Even the cameras seem to zoom in with a reverence that belongs in a quiet cathedral, not a courtroom. But hearing all of this today, she shakes her head softly. Money isn't what I lost. The defendant's shoulders tighten, bracing, anticipating a punishment he thinks he understands. The plaintiff continues. I lost my confidence, my trust in people, my ability to believe that speaking up wasn't dangerous. Elena's eyes fill with tears. Judge Judy nods, slow, encouraging. The defendant blinks hard, as if her words hurt him in places he didn't know he still had. What I need, she says, breathing in until her ribs shake, is for his actions to exist on record. For someone to finally say what he did was wrong, for him to lose the power to pretend he didn't hurt anyone. A silence so deep falls over the room that even the heartbeat of the lights seems to vanish. The defendant's face crumples, not dramatically, not theatrically, but in the subtle, devastating way a structure collapses under accumulated weight. His lips part, his throat shifts. For the first time, he looks like a man confronting the truth rather than outrunning it. Judy's voice is warm, almost protective. You are asking for recognition, for documentation, for truth. The plaintiff nods, tears slipping down her cheeks, quiet, dignified, released, rather than broken. And you, Judy says, turning her gaze to the defendant, will answer her request. He swallows, his voice trembles. I never meant for her to feel unsafe. The words fall flat, too small, too late, too practiced. He knows it. Everyone knows it. The plaintiff lifts her chin. I don't need an apology, she says. I need accountability. Her voice, steady now, reverberates through the room with more force than any accusation that came before it. Judge Judy nods once, decisively. This court has heard enough. The walls seem to inhale. Judy raises her gavel, slow, ceremonial, final. The verdict, she says, will be delivered now. Before the gavel falls, ask yourself, should justice heal or simply reveal? The courtroom holds its breath as Judge Judy lifts the gavel. Not to intimidate, but to deliver the truth he spent years hiding behind silence. She looks first at the plaintiff, her eyes soft with respect, with recognition, with the unspoken gratitude owed to those who speak up despite fear. Then she turns to the defendant, whose once proud posture has collapsed into something small, uncertain, stripped of every illusion he wrapped around himself. Mr. Dalton, Judy begins, voice steady as bedrock. This court finds your conduct toward the plaintiff unacceptable, coercive, and deeply harmful. Your contradictory statements, your intimidation, and your attempts to manipulate this process will not be ignored. The defendant's eyes glisten. His throat moves in a hard swallow. He tries to sit taller, but his shoulders sink again, gravity reclaiming the arrogance that once defied it. You will, Judy continues, provide restitution to Ms. Carter, not as compensation for her pain, because no amount of money could rewrite what you took from her, but as material acknowledgement of your wrongdoing. He nods, barely, as if moving through fog. Further, she says, turning the pages of the file with deliberate calm, this court documents your pattern of intimidation and the additional complaints presented today. They will be included in the official record. A tear slips down the plaintiff's cheek, not from pain now, but from the relief of finally being seen. Elena places a gentle hand over her heart, her shoulders lowering for the first time all day. And lastly, Judy says, meeting his eyes with the unblinking force of someone who has spent a lifetime confronting the powerful, the evidence of forged documents and coercion will be referred to the appropriate authorities. The defendant's breath catches. His jaw trembles. For a moment he looks like a boy again, someone still shaped by the shadow of a father who taught him dominance but never responsibility. But the courtroom does not see a child. It sees a man finally stripped of privilege's protective armor. You believed, Judy continues, that whispering made you untouchable, that fear would protect you, that quiet threats would never echo loud enough for the world to hear. She lowers the gavel until it hovers inches above the block. But truth does not whisper. Her voice drops to a powerful, resonant calm. It speaks. And today, it has spoken louder than your entitlement. The final strike lands, a sound that vibrates through the gallery, through the plaintiff's bones, through the defendant's unraveling soul. The defendant collapses into his chair, head bowed, eyes burning with the realization that power built on silence was never power at all. Not here, not anymore. Elena exhales, tears tracing her relief in quiet streaks. The plaintiff closes her eyes, letting the sound of justice wash over her like a long-awaited tide. Judge Judy leans back, voice softened to a reflective murmur. Arrogance always believes it can silence truth, until truth finally answers back. And in that courtroom, for the first time in his life, the billionaire's son had nothing left to say.